We're live. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. If you are on the East Coast, I'm here with Krista Brackey-Betu and Matt Thomas, and I am Angie Callen, your host of No More Mondays, is what I always want to say because I just go into podcast mode anytime I'm here. But most of you have kind of heard me spout off, and I wore my human shirt on purpose today because we are talking about how to leverage AI intelligently in your job search, because there are actually ways to do it. We can be enabled humans on purpose, but the slippery slope is, in case you haven't been out there in content land, you got to make sure it's on purpose or it starts to look a little ugly. So, for any of you out there watching live, this is an open forum, which is generally the case when I'm around. So throw some stuff in chat if there's anything, burning questions you want to ask. And otherwise, let's get started with this. So I'm going to queue up question for you both. We're going to start big picture. What have you each seen change in the last year when it comes to AI and job searching? Chris, I'll have you kick it off.
I have seen everybody using it. Generic things coming through. I've seen recently an over-reliance on using it for interview prep and people then going in and not remembering what they put together and having really performative bad showing. And I think it's kind of the evolution of going something in the last year that we were all playing with in chat and trying to figure out, to now having real test cases for it, but not really having a good understanding of how to keep your humanness while you're using it.
Matt, what do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think there's, in the last year or two, there's been more just fear coming up with people I talk to. I got to get past the AI bot. I got to get past the thing. And it's really been around longer than we think, but it's getting obviously more prevalent, smarter. And then, as we know, like the AI interviews are happening more frequently too.
Yeah, I think I would say one thing I'd add that I think brings all that together is we have just further removed human from human resources. And it's this vicious cycle because, by the way, on the candidate side, we aren't helping anything out because now we see these like AI apply for you stuff. And all that does is put a whole bunch more junk into the pile and create more noise for you to stand out amongst, which then makes the recruiters need to respond to find ways to mitigate the volume, whether that's with questionnaires, whether that's with AI screening, which I do want to talk about here in a second, or, whatever those steps are to try to filter the pack down to something that is humanly manageable. And we also know that the 10-year ago onset of the ATS started this whole trend towards dehumanizing human resources. And I feel like AI is making the camel's back sag, people. And it's at a time when we're in this employer market and the volume, and it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg. And so I'm curious, and Matt, you alluded to this, so I'm going to start with you, is we, for 10 plus years, we've talked about we've demystified the ATS and what it is and what it isn't. So right now, what are you seeing as far as like the quote unquote using job seeker language AI bots situation from an application stage? What has even changed there in your observation?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, for instance, I can't get too into it, but like our where I work, we were hiring for some more coaches actually, and probably 1,000 applicants. And so the first line was, our recruiters do skim them over, but also with the interview process, I was literally just talking to my recruiter about it. There was an AI agent literally asking the person questions, which actually it's intimidating, but it's almost like less bias in a way. Like if you know that you just have to still, either way, you're still speaking to your skills and how you can do the job, right? I mean, that's the name of the game still. Like there's a job because people need help. how can you be the help? You know?
And the interview part of it, which I want to come back to in a second, is interesting because it is intimidating in one sense, but also if you think about it, it's completely unintimidating because you're dealing with a trained object that can't go rogue on you. And so there tends to be like a certain set of questions it'll ask. It tends to be more predictable is probably what I would say. Chris, I'm curious what you're seeing from your like, past recruiting days and keeping in touch with that end on the, let's demystify what we can about like ATS versus AI screening versus human screening versus that whole cluster that's happening at the time of application. Loaded question. You get to take it.
I'll take it. I have no problem with this one. So ATS is still a filing system with Boolean search. That is it. That's the only thing. And I think the ATS is still getting a really bad rap for things it cannot do out there. It's just what the application goes into, and recruiters run whatever searches, click off whatever filters they want to extract candidates. So that then for the most part will get the AI tools and other things bolted onto it. And something that I think is really important for job seekers to think about. There's this assumption right now that every single company out there is running AI. Every single company out there is not running AI. Your Fortune 50s probably are. I'd say your Fortune 100s are. I think for college students coming into, well, they're kind of past, but still for, internships where they're having thousands of applicants for these jobs, they are going to be using AI tools to just sort through things because humans, recruiters at the desk can no longer deal with the volume.
Yeah.
So if somebody is looking at a small to mid-sized company, if they're looking at more traditional conservative companies, or even some companies with high compliance, they're going to find a lot less of the AI tools. So you've got your ATS, then you've got your AI tool. And the AI tools, there's statistics out there, I want to say on this AI interviewing that 30-40% of the people are just refusing to interview through these tools altogether. So if you're somebody who is okay with it, you already have a step ahead of the competition because 30-40% of the people are self-screening out of those interviews.
And that's the point, everybody. That is the point. A lot of these what we feel like are hoops to jump through before you ever talk to a human that I don't love. But again, we have all contributed to the almost need to weed out the volume somehow. These are like just the rules of engagement, and you have a choice on whether you engage in them or not. However, they are exactly what Chris just said. It is a weeding tool, even more so than it is to actually like evaluate your experience. Now it's going to do both. But, if you can weed out half the pack right away, it's very useful. And so maybe a good way to talk about this is, for years and years, and I'm curious, I think, Chris, to hear your response to how I think about this, which is for years and years and years, people thought the ATS was this, like, they thought it was what AI is kind of maybe sort of doing a little tiny bit of now, right? But really it is a database and it gets parsed, period. But also, guess what AI is, everyone? A database that gets parsed. And so to me, it's probably just a little bit more robust version of what we see with ATS, especially outside of our like FANG level companies. If you're applying there, the recipe at FANG level companies, I'm just going to tell you all, has always been go find a human. The chances that you're getting pulled out of a stack of a cold application at a company like that were slim before AI came into play. So that ultimately to me means we need to focus on job searching the way it's been for the last 8 years and ignore the fact that now there's generative AI layered over the top, because really it's not that much different that we should be concerned about it. Does that feel right? Okay.
No, that feels absolutely right. And, And another thing too, with the AI going into the ATS and getting bolted on for different kinds of searches, is if I know this isn't a LinkedIn conversation, but if you looked at what LinkedIn has done with their AI as it relates to LinkedIn Recruiter on the back end, with how it weights the skills, those 100 skills in LinkedIn, if they're connected to your most recent experiences, give you a stronger weight for a recruiter using LinkedIn Recruiter. So thinking about that technology in what they're overlaying in the ATS, if you say you've used a particular piece of software within the last 2 years, or your sales numbers are actually on there for your last job, that's going to get weighted heavier than anything you haven't put into the experience section. So there's a lot more logic behind the searches. When I was a recruiter, and if I was looking for SAP software, but they had it 3 jobs ago, I personally had to figure out where they did it. And sometimes that came down to talking to people in the interview to find out if it was recent or not. So these technologies are allowing recruiter to make the matches faster that they're supposed to be making for the end user.
Yeah. And if you are an end user who, I'm going to go back to all the way number 1 of these Job Seeker Summit mini momentum series, we talk about clarity. If you have the clarity of what you're targeting, you have already done that work, and it shouldn't matter. So for a very long time, put earmuffs on, any children in earshot, I have said, fuck the ATS. And I think that is still very much true, right? Humans still hire humans. We have just put a whole lot of obstacles in the middle of the gauntlet there. But ultimately, if you know, and you have clear targets of what you're looking for, your strengths, and you know how to articulate that to the end user, you will get through each obstacle in the gauntlet, whether it's AI, another human, and whatever it is, with enough success. That to me, like, we get really caught up in this on the front end, but ultimately it just derails productivity in the long run. If you just know exactly what you're looking for and you've been well branded, it will work out in the end, which is probably a good time to talk about using AI for the branding and the documents. So, Matt, what are you seeing, or what are you coaching people on as far as using AI for resumes, LinkedIn content, and the actual job search materials?
Yeah, and I think Chris alluded to this slightly at the beginning, like, everyone is using it now. And so it's almost like we can assume people are using AI to do resumes.
Let's just make that assumption.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
So those of us that look at resumes all week, you can start telling when the summary is generic and looks the same. Everyone's languages are starting to look the same. Adept at this, proven at this. And so I encourage people, the way I coach and use it is to use it to compare what I have already as a resume to a particular job posting, for instance, and ask for suggestions. Most people are saying, rewrite it for me, right? Which again gets into more generic. So in order to stand out more, especially with your summaries or career highlights, however, the debate of that, whatever's at the top of your resume needs to be impactful and specific to you. So you can use AI to help you. Like, I'll also take a resume and someone's experience and say, hey, out of this resume, what are like the top 6 highlights? Just to help someone think about, hey, what is important? What is specific to me? I don't care that you can, help process and streamline workflows. Give me an example, because everybody can write the same thing. So that's some of it, using it as a comparison tool and like a thought partner, as opposed to writing it all. Now, even with like a job posting, I might say, hey, AI, what are like the 20 competencies from this? Which helps you think as a person, as a job seeker and as a coach, like, okay, hey person, have any of these speak to you? How have you used this in your workplace? And then we incorporate that language from a human standpoint.
Exactly. And let's take a step back. I'm an AI nerd. I love AI and I love humans. I
Me
mean,
too.
two things can be true, people. Two things can be true. And what Matt brings up is a very good point in the sea of sameness that we're seeing. And so there are clear, and I get mad about some of it because it's trained on stuff we wrote, right? Like I used to use AdeptAt in resumes before generative AI, and I've used
did.
M-dashes in human writing. And now as soon as you have them, you're like, but that's how it's been trained. And so the LLMs are trained to a median type of communication and a median type of language with a very small standard deviation. Now we're getting nerdy and you're talking to a former engineer. And so all output is trained to be within 10 to 20% of that median, which is why it tends to sound very similar. And I'm just going to tell you, we're all becoming more and more conditioned to it as almost normal language. The problem is in a job search, if everybody is just submitting what AI outputs, you're all within 20% of the exact same language. And now a recruiter is looking at the exact same resume and there's no differentiation, which brings me to you, Chris. Something you said to me when we were talking about doing this was that basically our prompts suck. And part of it is because we think about prompts completely the wrong way. So talk to me about your perspective on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to take it a step back. We're going to go back. This is not a training session, but I'm going to get into it a little bit.
It's not a training session.
Not a training.
It's whatever we want it to be.
We're going to do it. Okay. So, and I'm going to speak to ChatGPT and Claude because those are the two that I use the most and know the structures of. Most people are opening a chat, throwing some stuff in there, like a job description, maybe a resume, but there's no background. And what I tell my clients, my coaching clients, is if you choose to use AI, because you don't have to. We make this sound like everybody has to. You don't have to use it. You can do this all from scratch. But if you choose to use AI, to use it well, to keep your humanness, you have to make a decision to give it enough of you that it is going to be able to give back your language, your tone, your insight. So if you're using ChatGPT, Chat or Claude, we'll say that, you need a project. You need a project for your job search, for your applications, and every single thing you do should be in that project. And you want to start these projects off, open up, however you like to write, or you can do speech to text, use Word, use Google Docs, whatever. Tell it everything you want it to know about your job search. It can be your hopes and dreams. It can be your goals. It can be your values. It can be, I hated this about my last job. I want this in the next job. Just give it all of the things. Load in a couple of iterations of whatever resumes you have. And if you have any creative writing that you've done or you like to write, give it some writing samples also in there and give it the instructions. Claude does it one way, ChatGPT does it another, and say, I don't want to sound generic. I like to write this way. Make every one of my bullets start with a different action verb. Use a SAR structure for, my bullets. Whatever it is that you like or about, you have to feed that piece before you ever ask it to do anything. Analyze everything in the projects, because what happens is then it gets to know you, everything that you want, and it becomes more individualistic because it's learning from you. But that's a choice you have to make. Do you want to give it all this stuff?
Well, and here's the where I want to go. Let's just take it back to 30,000 foot view with something very simple. The word prompt is a complete misnomer that really should have never been applied to the whole situation, because it makes us think that we put a 1 or 2 sentence prompt in there and magically get this amazing output. And that isn't the case.
No.
So the best way to improve your output is to give it as much context as you possibly can. And the more comfortable you are with that context, the better that the output you have. And I mean, one of the things that I talk to AI like it's a person, which might disturb some of you. However, from the get-go, it has given me great stuff back. And I was like, why am I getting such great stuff back? And it's because I just sit there and I just ramble at it. And so it not only picks up on lots of little bits it can potentially connect, but it's picking up on my language.
Yes.
One of the best things you can do is voice to text it in it. You can actually talk to it, but I love the voice to text because it just starts to train the language. So I love that you took this way back, and the best thing that you can do, no matter if it's job search, business strategy, thought partnership, whatever, is give context. And projects are a great way to bulk context, right? A lot of people don't use those. I'm consistently surprised by how few people are not using that just simple level. And so maybe that's like a good way to step up and just feed it tons of stuff. The more it knows, the better that you're going to get out. And with a resume, one thing you may want to say, I love what Matt said about the fact that like use it to parse stuff, because that's what it does really well, right? Use it to parse keywords in a job description, to tease out what it thinks the highest skills are as a way for you to trigger your human stories. But you can also force ChatGPT and Claude to ask you questions before it outputs. Claude is better at this than ChatGPT. ChatGPT just loves to be like, here is your 7-page answer to the thing that has 12 things we need to think about in between, but it just keeps outputting them. Claude's a little more intelligent in that regard. So you could also kind of test this stuff out. Because, and I love that, because I was actually, you answered like 3 things I wanted to ask you, Chris, which is good, right? Which is, how do we keep our voice in here? What information should we be giving it in order to get good output? And then now what I want to do is take all of that and say, exactly, like, let's get I love to get really nuanced in these sessions. That's why we're deep diving. Once you've established good output, how exactly, and Matt, I might ask you this question because you see this really frequently from a resume perspective. How do you integrate the AI output with the human stuff? Or how do you make sure you're not in that little tiny margin of standard deviation as you leverage that kind of output? So where exactly does this stuff belong in your application materials?
Yeah, I mean, part of it helps with conversations with a learner or a client to ask them questions after we might have some output. Okay, so you're saying you did, you led a team of people. Tell me more about that. And we can get deeper into, I guess you can ask AI that too, but as human to human, we have similar experiences. AI will give you information, but it doesn't think like us yet. Not for a while. It has its own way of thinking, but human to human has that empathy that I can understand what it is to lead a bunch of people that have different personalities. So conversations are important, I think, to help streamline into bullet points for your resume, into your summary. And then if we go to LinkedIn, into your headline, which is important, people see the first 3 to 5 words if they don't open your page. So and then like your top skills and your about section, like what story are we painting here? What picture do we want people to see?
Yeah. And that's, so in case you didn't notice, there was a very small commercial for us in there. You can't remove humans for the process, because I'll say this, and you guys can yell at me if you don't like this. AI can write an okay resume. It can write a better resume than a non-resume writing professional can write for themselves without it. That is true. But it's only going to get you to a point. And that's where you'll fall into the repetitiveness of everyone else who's doing the same, and not be able to kind of take it over the finish line to where the human value proposition has been kind of moved into it. And that and all of that is also assuming you have good clarity, and you've been able to ask yourself good questions, which AI can't do and a human is still needed. And so I tend to be pretty like just open about that fact, is it's like, it's better than nothing, but it's not a complete replacement, especially because this career narrative really needs the human lens and the human connection. Let's have 5 minutes of fun. What are things that are clearly, this came straight out of AI? Matt, you start. What's a trigger that you're like, oh, that's AI?
Well, I mean, I think you kind of said it. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the M dashes. I mentioned some of like more of the buzzwords that we all used to use: adept, proven track record.
Deeply
experience.
experienced, deep
Yeah.
experience in the word deep.
Mhm. Maybe passionate. Yeah, I don't know.
Chris, what do you see?
Yeah.
At the intersection of.
Yes.
Stop it. Also quietly.
Quietly. Oh, mine loves quietly.
Quietly.
I take it out every single time.
Quietly. What else do I see? There's just a cadence to it, even in the bullet points, or the bullets under the experience, where how it kind of groups things together, always in threes, always kind of strangely. If you tell it not to use end dashes, then suddenly you have 1,000 colons. I'm like, what are you doing? Stop it. And you can, if you can tell it, you're allowed 1 end dash in this whole thing,
And it will still give you 5.
No, mine doesn't anymore. I've yelled at it.
Oh, yours is smarter than mine. Mine still loves end dashes.
Yeah, but what else? And there's just some strange short sentence structures. I see it more around sentence structures and just this weird choppiness that I'm like, oh, that doesn't read normal.
And I'm probably going to fail at coming up with an example. What I have seen is there, and I don't know why this is the case, because you would think these things are trained on like current and what has always been the same English sentence structure. But I find it will take the modifier and put it at the end of the sentence instead of it going with the thing that it should be modifying. So like if you're saying I'm going to a place to do a thing, it'll say I'm doing the thing at a place, but it comes across really clunky, and all of a sudden has this little hanging modifier that, I'm sorry, is not how I learned English in 8th grade, with all the little things that were magnets on the chalkboard and the little prepositions that looked like the state of California. And remember all those little pieces that we used to like learn sentence structure? So
diagramming and all that.
Yeah. What is Scott? Scott says AI giveaway, excessive contrast framing.
Yes.
The other thing, and I get a little bit peeved about some of this, because these are like, they're styles that I did write in, and now I feel like I can't. But it would say, but it's more aggressive. It'll say things like something and something isn't about this. It's about this. Yes, the contrast framing, right? And so I think is one important thing is, no matter how you're going to leverage AI anywhere, whether it's in your documents, your LinkedIn profile, your content, business owner, read it out loud. If it doesn't sound like you, change it. Because the last thing you ever want to do is copy paste. That's a huge mistake, in my opinion. Chris, go ahead.
Well, one thing I think for people who are starting to use this for resumes or trying to use it for resumes, it makes it easier if you don't have it edit or work with you to iterate the entire document.
Do it in chunks.
Do it in chunks. Start with the summary, start with each section, because you can also say, and Angie, I love what you said about making it ask you questions. Kind of going back to that piece too, if you give it a bunch of information, the last thing you should write is there anything else you need to know to give me what I'm asking for? And then I'll do that. But when you do it in chunks, like say you go in and say, hey, help me write the summary for my resume. That's all you should be doing. Then you can tell it just for that summary what you want it to sound like. And then you can say, give me 3 options. And when you ask it for options, then you can pull pieces from all of it, rewrite it, smooth it, and it becomes more of your iterative partner than something you're going to cut and paste. And
absolutely
too overwhelming for the average person who's not a resume writer, because writing resumes is not fun. It's not easy. It's not it sucks. I mean, I've been a resume writer for years, and I'm going to tell you, writing resumes is not fun. But it's a necessary evil. And I do think if you can use it as your writing partner to give you lots of ideas, you're going to have yourself in the document, and better than what you could have done sitting in a room by yourself.
Writing partner, not writing replacement. Matt, go ahead.
I like that. No, I was just going to add, I like that part about the chunks, right? Like for instance, because sometimes people will tell me I don't know how to quantify my work. So sometimes I'll take their bullet points and ask here's this bullet point, quantify this bullet point, like with a variable, like put an X, and it will AI will give you some kind of sentence, maybe giving you an idea of a number that you hadn't thought of, and then you can start thinking about it. So I do like that.
So you almost like force it to stick a placeholder in there.
Yeah.
And Chris is right, where like you can force it to operate in sections, especially ChatGPT. You really, really have to keep guardrails on it because it just wants to keep outputting the entire thing over and over and over again. And you can just tell it, I will want to go one step at a time. Do not move to the next section of my resume until I say that I'm ready. You might have to tell it that 2 or 3 times in the course of the whole project, but you can put guardrails on it and you will get better output. And then you have that thought partner, not that replacement so much. So I want to take a hard left. Chris, you wrap it. No, yes.
One more thing. When you do it in chunks and you get in an interview, you will remember what's on your resume.
Yes,
also.
You will.
Because when it spits out the whole thing and you get into an interview and maybe you scan it, because we all read so fast and we don't read deeply, you will remember it more and you will perform better in the interview.
You said that at the very beginning, and I'm glad you brought us back to that, because especially in ChatGPT, it just outputs so much stuff that you're skimming it. And if you're using it to prep for the interviews, it can't help your memory once you actually are sitting in the room. And ultimately, you shouldn't be memorizing what you already know about yourself anyway. You should just organize it in a way that it's easy to like recall, which it can help you with. It can help you structure some of that stuff, but at some point you have to get out of there and just go be on your own with it. I want to take a hard left turn and come to you, Matt, because you said something that I thought was really interesting, and that is about how upskilling has become kind of prevalent. You live in a world that is upskilling. It's become more prevalent and more desired now that we're seeing AI on the scenes. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, some know, I work at Guild, which is education tech companies. And we probably work with, approximately 100 employers, partners right now. And they each have their own catalog of courses that their people can take. AI, I was telling them, has increased. I've been here for 4+ years now. It's increased in the hundreds of percentile of enrollments of like AI
in how to use AI coursework, right? So like building AI skills.
Yeah, building AI skills, taking certificate programs or graduate certificates, because it's obviously employers now are trying to. Everyone's trying to figure it out. I think they're trying to use it because that's what we need to do or something. No one has it figured out yet, but everyone's trying to use it, and so I think that helps for those looking for jobs, but also whether you're looking for a job or in a job.
Yes.
You need to be continuing to not just taking a course, but using it in your job. How can you work on a project? How can you dabble with it? You have to have some essentially entrepreneurial learning here to be like, okay, how can AI, and now we're getting more into agents, right? Not just prompting, but agents that can do stuff behind the scenes.
Talk to my language.
Yeah. So AI skilling in our world has increased significantly. And we need to keep, there are those concerns, like there's environmental concerns, there's ethical concerns people have out there, which are real concerns, but it's probably not going away. So
it's not going away, people.
How can we embrace it? So you stay with the curve. Also, let me know if I'm rambling here, but this is passionate. The people talk about jobs being taken, right? More entry level jobs and white collar jobs now. I mean, honestly, doctors or robots are doing surgeries. It's just.
And guess what? Guess what, everybody? They were in the 70s. So
it's not new.
This has existed in very small ways we didn't see as consumers for years and years and years and years. It's just the difference is now the capabilities are widespread availability. That's what feels like it's changing things.
Mhm.
Yeah. And you bring up several good points in there that I'll highlight. This is why I do believe on being an AI enabled human on purpose. Unless you are less than 5 years away from retirement, and Chris will give me a friendly amendment on this because we were sounding off about it the other day. Unless you're on the brink of retirement, you cannot ignore AI because it is here to stay. Now, that said, I also believe that we are fortunate or unfortunate or a little bit of both living in the crosshairs that is the AI gold rush, because it is available to everyone now and everyone wants to use it everywhere, all the time, everything all at once. And I think that there is a weird dichotomy in corporate America of let's use it for everything without any governance or any clear plan there, which leaves an individual out there trying to figure out how to get upskilled, and also while being terrified of whether or not they're going to keep their job. And we've got this whole mess of, like quote unquote adoption without clear guardrails. I think the dust is going to settle on that in the next 18 to 24 months. We're just in the onset of it right now, which is a really interesting place to be in some regard. However, what Matt brings up, I think, is a really great point, is that AI is here to stay. We can't ignore it. I believe that there is an intentional, ethical way to use it that enables us and enables our intelligence without replacing it and without replacing our purpose. Right now, individually, we have to figure out what that upskilling looks like, because there probably isn't a clear pathway internally. And from a resume perspective, we're now looking at things we need to be able to showcase as accomplishments. So you can't just put ChatGPT and Claude in there as an area of expertise and a competency. We need to know now it goes into the achievement-based things that we want to be able to prove through an outcome. And Chris, I know you've got something to say. So what is it?
Chris is ready.
So, when I think about this piece and what I about 6 months ago really started to do with my clients when I talk through them is we have a whole conversation about AI adoption at work. How is their company using it? And you're right, Angie. Most of these companies are saying, use AI as much as you can. We're paying for it. We're bolting it on. Use it as much as you can. And I think that's going to change a little bit, because I've heard some things from my clients about consumption models versus regular monthly reoccurring revenue models, where these companies are going to be charged lots of money for consumption and token use. And it's going to drive some changes in the marketplace. But people have to be intentional. And we talk about this all the time in job search: intentionality, clarity, everything. When you are sitting in your job right now, if you're employed and they're asking you to do something with AI, this is where you need to start taking good notes, because you need to be able to go into your interview and say, this is how AI was adapted. This is what I did with it. Here are my results.
Yes.
It can't just be, oh, hey, I took all of Anthropic's 7 courses and I'm ready to go.
You have to show application.
There has to be you need to start building these personal case studies for it. And if you haven't had the opportunity to do that, it is okay to say, my company was not an adopter of it. This is what intrigues me about it. And this is what I've done to ready myself for it. But it is the Wild West. And I also think it's not just the Wild West with how individuals are using it. It's all these companies go to market strategies with all these little things that these organizations can buy. And I will age myself here. I haven't been through one .com uprising. I was working in San Francisco recruiting at the beginning of all of them. And this very much reminds me of that, where
Bingo.
SaaS came to the forefront. People got back when I started recruiting accounting and finance people, you had 30 people sitting in a Fortune 100 company processing AP invoices. I think you're hard pressed to find one person there today, but you have a lot more data analytics team and all of these other things. So how it's going to evolve, I think, is interesting. But we are in a period where there's hype and volume and companies and products. And, there's a lot of companies that don't exist anymore from those .coms because others came into the market and became the cornerstones.
Okay, so now you have
Mhm.
gotten me exactly to where I wanted. I think we should go. This was not part of the plan, but I actually think it's really needed. And Matt alluded to it, and Chris took us a little further. And that is that there are, I would say, the majority of people out there do fear AI and what it's going to do to their jobs. If you look at the statistics on AI adoption from an individual perspective, it's actually very low. We have not even gotten to a quarter of the population using generative
Mhm.
AI. So that's also a problem from a skill perspective. But I want to talk to everybody about what you feel like. How do you coach clients when they say AI is going to take my job, or I'm afraid AI is going to take my job, or maybe even more importantly, what do I do to make sure AI doesn't take my job? Matt, I'm going to start with you because at Guild, you guys are serving a population that is like a lot of skilled types of professionals, and I'm wondering what that conversation is there. So kick us
Mhm.
off. What is your response to that fear?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly real. And I talked to a variety of people from the whole, all levels, so it's kind of an interesting perspective. Um, some of what we talked about now is because some of the people I talk to, right, they they think, okay, I'm upskilling, I took the certificate, like that should be good, right? And I'm like, that is one that checks one box, right? Learning. But we've said this already. How are you using it? How are you using it on your job? What are opportunities for you to access that? Shadowing, volunteering. I get it. It's. I tell people to do a lot of stuff that's hard because folks I talk to do have jobs, families, like a lot of people, right? And when are they going to do this? So I'm like,
Hmm.
try to do it on your job. You know, um, for for instance, I'm a coach. I talk to people. And it's like, where does AI fit in? And and I joined our AI champions group at the company as a way to get access and to learn. And so if there's opportunities like that, that's what I'm talking to people about. Like we can only control what we can't control
Yeah.
the macro climate, right? We can control how am I learning this?
There's another
How,
hour.
yeah, sorry. How am I using this? I mean, the fears are, valid. I think it's a fearful time because companies are spending, they're spending, like you said, spending lots of money
Yeah.
on the AI software, which is which is trying to create more efficiency, which might reduce jobs. So coaching around that is about what people can control.
Yeah.
What can you do on your job? Um, and if you're not working now, like, yeah, how can you be working on projects to show that
Mhm.
evidence and application, like we said?
And Chris, I'm coming to you in a second, but I'm going to tie a couple things together. Scott in the comments says, I'm not going to lie, I enjoy watching companies realize when they've over-indexed. And I 100%
True.
agree. There were actually about 9 months ago, maybe close to a year ago, there were some reports out there where companies like Klarna and Taco Bell had just broad scoped rolled out AI. And you got to think about that was a year ago. And how much more have things advanced since then? So they were like way early over adopters, and BroadScope rolled it out to replace customer service and realized how many issues it was causing. And so they had to unroll it out. And I'm working with a software engineer right now who is essentially being forced to use Copilot for all of his coding. And I will tell you, it takes him twice as much time to go in there and deal with an instance of Copilot that was rolled out on a foundation that was not set up with appropriate consistent metadata and appropriate consistent taxonomies to have it work. So he's probably spending twice as much time dealing with prompting Copilot versus what he could just do on his own. And that's the kind of stuff that, like, at some point somebody's going to wake up. But I'm also sitting here thinking at some time we're going to know what that happy medium is, and we're eventually going to see where the displacement is. And this is where that fear piece comes back. And Chris, I want to hear what you have to think about this in people fearing being replaced versus how do we keep up enough to not be displaced or not be replaced, but be on the right side of the displaced. So what's your thoughts on all this?
So my thoughts on this, and I've had a lot of conversations with my clients recently about it. I tend to dig into, okay, let's kind of park the fear over here and walk me through what's happening at your organization. What are you seeing? How are they implementing it? How close can you get to it? Where are you seeing it's working, right? And when we spend a good chunk of time kind of calmly going through that, some realize that, yes, in fact, they're in a vulnerable situation. And others are like, oh, this is more of what I'm reading than what is actually here for me. And I think as coaches, we need to help people walk through what's real and what's LinkedIn fear mongering for likes and all of these things and this hype. And if companies want to spend this much money to adopt AI, you're going to have layoffs because they only have so much money. So they're taking their headcount, they're taking their payroll, and they're putting it into AI. But they're going to have to bring people back eventually because it has to be monitored. And the people who understand putting guardrails on the AI, who get into how it works, who get into this is good for the client, this is good for the company, and understand the downstream ramifications of how they're applying it in the operation, and are able to come forward and say, hey, love it for this, but maybe we want to watch it here and get known for that. Will probably be able to, they may not be able to completely miss a layoff, but they will be closer and have much better, input in their next round of interviews as the adoption continues.
And that is where we get into there are reports out there that suggest there will be more jobs created by AI than taken by AI. The problem is they're different. Same, Chris, I'm so glad you brought up like the .com boom and the Great Recession, because essentially this is history repeating itself, which we all know it does every 20 to 30 years. And the conditions right now are a lot like the transition into the digital age. Now we're just seeing the transition into the AI age. And like you mentioned, there used to be 30 people sitting in there doing AP. Now there's one, but the other 29 are all now represented by people developing the software that keeps that person from needing 29 other people, right? And so you've got to think about, and that doesn't mean that somebody that's a bookkeeper is going to go to a coder, but in a way, that's why we see the statistic of there being job creation instead of net job loss. The problem is the workforce makeup doesn't match. And so as an individual, what I would tell you is how can you upskill yourself? How can you position yourself to be on the right side of a displacement so that if the exact function you have now is replaced by an AI function, you can go beyond the other side of it? For some reason, I'll use the example of a contract manager. Right now, somebody that managed contracts writes them, most likely. Newsflash, there is already software out there that will write contracts. And so if you know how to manage that software, QA, QC, what it outputs, you will be on the right side of the displacement. That's a super, super simple example of somewhere where you can't fear the software that enables the automation. You be the person that runs it instead of the manual end of it, right? And these are the things that we're all talking about with people. And I believe that we're going to move into a period of substantial career shifts, pivots, and changes coming up because of this. And the best thing you all can do out there is be an AI-enabled human on purpose who's one step ahead of all of these things. So if you're not already talking to Matt, Chris, or I, call us.
Yeah. Well,
if you want an assessment of how AI-proof am I, that just gave me an idea. You should be talking to a human coach who understands the market and has the ability to, while we're not perfect, foresee what is coming down the pipe and how to position you on the right end of it. Chris, go for it.
Well, and I want to go back to what Matt said too about how to upskill at work. I think, as you were talking, we're kind of talking through how these companies are adopting, get on the implementation teams, raise your hand for projects, get as close to the infrastructure on this stuff as you can, and also adoption in your own company, the policies and procedures around it, anywhere you can get close enough to that to be able to continue to use it at your organization or use it as a springboard to get into another organization. That's going to be some of the best ways you can future-proof yourself. if that's something you're interested in doing.
The last thing that you want to do is stick your head in the sand and pretend like it doesn't exist, because that's a fast track to being replaced. However, if you're an AI enabled human on purpose, you can ride the wave and be on the right side of the displace if that applies to your industry. The thing is, don't wait. And if you're out there job searching, it's a great way to start dabbling and thoughtfully leveraging AI to enable the job search, not replace the human in it, to just get kind of used to these things. So how about we end on a lighter note after we just helped address everyone's fears, or maybe create more. We're gonna do a little lightning round. All right. So Chris, I'll start with you. Fill in the blank. AI is great for blank, but terrible for blank.
AI is great for ideation, terrible for facts.
Oh, that's good. Oh, I have a thought on that in a minute. But Matt, you go next. AI is great for blank, but terrible for what?
Oh man, this is hard to go second. Lightning round. AI is great for, I'll change it around, thought partnership, but bad for connection, like human connection.
Ooh, and actually, oh man, now I have to commentary that, because it is really easy to sit there and be in a conversational loop with an inanimate object forever without ejecting yourself and going to get either human input, or even if it's not related to the conversation you were having, just human connection. Not to derail, but there's actually a loneliness epidemic happening out there in the world, and we are more disconnected than ever, even though there's the illusion of connection, and technology in general started that. And I believe AI is exacerbating it. And so I think we're going to see a gravitation back towards good old human connection, which also brings me to something Chris said, which is, I have been seeing that people are seeking that right now, because you can ideate, but you don't know what's true. And so at some point you want the grounding of a professional experience, an experienced professional, to confirm or debunk some of the facts or advice that you're getting from the system. So it's kind of like, the AI conversations can take you so far before you need to connect with a human. So that was good. Ready for the next one?
Go.
What is one, this is easier. What is one thing you wish every job seeker out there would change after listening to us talk about AI in their job search? So if every job seeker changed one thing about how they use AI today, what would it be? Matt, I'm going to put you on the hot seat first.
Yeah, that would be to don't use it to do everything. Just use it strategically and intentionally.
That's good. Chris, what about you?
Stop relying on it 100%. Break the stuff down and write some of your own things. And if you're going to write one thing from scratch in your whole job search, and you're going to do a cover letter, write your cover letter from scratch, because that's going to stand out.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And now I am resisting the urge to talk about, do you really need a cover letter? We will save that for the next one, y'all. Which, by the way, usually I announce the next one of these here. We're going to take July off because the first week of the month falls 4th of July. So we're going to take July off. Also, I am on the Great Road Trip in July, so I will just take a little hiatus, and we'll be back with you all in August with people and a topic. TBD. Would love suggestions on if there's a deep dive you want me to do with some of our coaches from the Job Seeker Summit. Drop me a note here on LinkedIn and let me know. And as we close things out, you're each getting the same final question. Chris, I'll start with you. Let's put our future thinking hats on. 5 years from now, what do you think will differentiate a successful candidate when everyone has the same access to tools?
Communication and clarity. It always comes back to that. No matter how many tools we have, it's about communication and clarity.
Mm-hmm. Lack of clarity in a job search is more detrimental than a bad resume. When you visit me when I'm dead, that'll be on my gravestone. Matt, what do you think? If in 5 years, what's going to set people apart?
I mean, it sounds cliche, but I think it's still going to be relationships.
Mhm. Yeah. Look how simple that all was. And so, what I want to leave you all with, first of all, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Chris. And if you're not already following them here on LinkedIn, or if you're out there watching on one of the other channels, come on over to LinkedIn and follow all of us, because these two put out really great content related to this to just help you continue building AI skills, but more importantly, remaining an AI enabled human on purpose. Because if you hear what Chris and Matt just both said, as far as clarity, communication, and relationships, that's the wave of the future. And to me, I will wrap all of that up with telling you human skills. Human skills are where the market is going. And we, oddly enough, my newsletter went out today, Human on Purpose. And I talk about the fact that soft skills need a rebrand, because that was just a real bad term applied to them 30 years ago. And ultimately, it's human skills. And I believe they're the thing that is really going to differentiate us, as long as you can apply them to an AI enabled environment. And so,
Yes.
how's that for a really good conversation on not just how to use AI in your job search, but in your career development? Thank you both for being here. And I will see all of you in August for another Job Seeker Summit Momentum series. Keep in touch and let us know how we can help you. See you soon.